Raven Software at the time was known for pushing out good fantasy-themed games like Heretic and Hexen. These two games are what people remember the company for outside of games like Soldier of Fortune and maybe a few of their Star Wars games. But just like other companies, Raven has had its fair share of obscure and overlooked games, and this happens to be one of them. Necrodome is a vehicular first-person shooter game released in August 20th, 1996, as a shareware demo before hitting retail with Strategic Simulations as its publisher in October 30th of that same year. Unlike other obscure titles that Raven has cooked, Necrodome appears to be a game that doesn't get enough attention to spawn reviews and retrospectives. But here on this channel, the Nerdy Redhead is here to help bring this game some recognition. Let's get started. Information about Necrodome's development history have been pretty rare to find, so I will explain what I've found to the best of my ability. Initially, the game engine used in Necrodome was originally meant for a planned sequel to Raven's previous title, Cyclones, but for unknown reasons it was decided that an entirely new game would be developed instead. It was speculated that the engine in question was Raven's own Vampire engine, which powered two other titles, Mage Slayer and Techno Prisoners, both of which were top-down games with their own distinct themes. However, I find it hard to believe due to the technical differences felt between the three games, based on my own experiences. Unless the three games saw source code releases, I can't be 100% certain, but it was not uncommon to have reused code from previous works, and Raven's track record, thanks to their connections to the people at id Software, is no exception. Necrodome also had a preliminary demo meant for the E3 Expo in May 1996, showing a rough presentation of what the game offered. Getting it to work on modern hardware was very picky, and I only got it to run on a Pacific 86 box instance for this video. Looking at various screenshots showcased in magazine articles at the time, it indicates that the game was to offer more different levels and a score system. I am unsure if this was supposed to be some sort of currency system for buying weapons based on this one particular screenshot showing all of the weapons, but I will leave that up for speculation until some Raven employee can confirm. It was speculated that the player would have been able to drive different vehicles judging from pre-release screenshots, and even the unused title screen found in that demo. The game seemed likely to be an MS-DOS title at one point, but soon made the switch to being a Windows 95 game utilizing DirectX 2.0. Again, I can't exactly confirm, but I won't be surprised, mainly because of reasons we will get to later. Necrodome did see plans to get it ported over to the Sony PlayStation, along with a port to the Panasonic 3DO being considered, but it never saw the light of day. However, the PlayStation version did see plenty of advertising at its time, and in recent times, a sealed copy was once shown in a Reddit post, but it is unknown if it's a placeholder prop or an actual prototype is inside. We will never know unless the owner sees confidence in unsealing it. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one anytime soon. It was believed that the plot for Necrodome seemed nearly non-existent. Thankfully, there are some sources and the manual itself that has yet to see a scanned copy. The game takes place in a post-apocalyptic United States, where society starved for violent entertainment. The Necrodome was considered the most popular sport in this barbaric time, where modern gladiators wage war inside arenas across the country, using heavily armed state-of-the-art combat vehicles called raiders. The primary goal for each arena involves racing to the arena flag and returning it to your spawn point, and you have to retrieve all of them en route to the Necrodome, where you will challenge the Annihilator to be crowned the master of the arena. Along with the Bloodsport plot comes one of the game's main strong points, which would be its unique concept as a hybrid between on-foot first-person shooter and vehicular combat. Your raider makes use of front-mounted weapons starting with the basic high-velocity gun to chain guns and dumbfire rocket launchers, while the raider's turret weaponry served as secondary weapons like rapid-fire lasers, heavy cannons, and homing missile launchers. The player can cycle in between vehicle and turret modes, but there are certain cases where your vehicle blows up, leaving you at the highly vulnerable runner mode, with only a tri-barrel shotgun as a last resort until you get back to a new vehicle located at your spawn point. Now, one thing I will say is that despite the tri-barrel shotgun's role, I really like the design a whole lot, and it's no wonder why some Doom mods would use it. The items you would find consist of shield pickups, serving as armor, if the green and blue variant isn't a dead giveaway already, while inventory items like internal repair kits, turbo boost, smoke screens, and napalm can be common to find in most maps. You could find mines to plant, but they aren't as useful in single player, while nukes can be found on occasion. In my playthrough, the repair kits and smoke screens were the most used, the latter being a case of my thumb hitting the spacebar by accident. The enemy roster is divided into 3 groups: infantry, vehicles, and turrets. For the infantry, we have the basic trackers who blast you with shotguns and would occasionally toss grenades. They can get a bit annoying when in groups, and they've also come out from indestructible APC vehicles. Rangers are considered the flying variant, wielding high-velocity guns and rocket launchers. They are best dealt with using heavy cannons or by running them over with some timing. Sentinels are considered the top tier of that group, rocking power armor suits with chain guns and rocket launchers. Onto the vehicular enemies are stalkers that exclusively ram the player, hunters that are armed with high-velocity cannons and chain guns, and the marauders that serve as the heavy type with sidearmed heavy cannons. Destroyers are slow but well armed with guided missile turrets and high velocity guns. Mine layers are also slow but self-explanatory as it lays out mines. Flamers are like the Stalker except they roast your vehicle, and lastly, the hover tanks basically just hover around with rocket launchers. The turrets come in various types, like lasers, spinning machine guns, and heavy cannons. Since we already explained the game's setting, I've already explained how level progression works. However, these levels come with various objectives like killing certain enemies and objects, along with some switch hunting to progress further. Unfortunately, as much as the game's concept had potential, it was wasted thanks to the fact that Necrodome was a rushed out product. So Raven could focus on their sequel, Hexen 2. Its overall presentation led to a mixed reception due to a combination of steep player controls and how demanding it was towards mid-range PCs of its time, especially with machines like the 133MHz Pentium processor. My belief is that it was a byproduct of being an early adopter of Microsoft's own API, DirectX. Keep in mind that this was Raven's first Windows game, and at the time of the shareware release, DirectX 2.0 was already out, and by that point, Direct3D had already been introduced, and the game being exclusive to DirectDraw did not help either. Necrodome becomes even more demanding once you start bumping up the render distances and enable high-resolution mode. The latter not only being demanding due to the lack of hardware acceleration, but also comes with rather ugly-looking first-person graphics. It looks like somebody at Raven took the low-res graphics and resized them with bicubic filtering, before applying the game's palette on it with a little bit of weird dithering and a change of color. Which is why most of the footage you're seeing is coming from an optional fan-made patch that replaces them with what looks like neural AI upscales. Honestly, it's not the best solution in the world, and AI upscales aren't really for everybody, but then again, I think Raven would have been better off just changing the rendering view instead, and left the graphics alone. If you do plan on playing the game on period-accurate hardware, you're just better off playing in low-resolution mode. Fortunately, the controls did see some improvement to fit in with modern control schemes thanks to a fan-made patch, made by the efforts of White Magic Raven in Disparal. A link for the patch will be in the description down below. However, I will give out 2 pro tips for anyone interested in playing. The first is to utilize the backpedal key when turning, as it helps make your radar turn faster. And second is to make sure you're shooting enemies up close, as more damage output is done there, compared to far distance. It's weird because while the shots do land, the damages are so little that you would be wasting more ammo than it's worth for a simple vehicle. But I advise not to get too close when blowing up vehicles because you will take some splash damage. Now, the shareware exclusive single player levels were fun to play, but once we reach to the retail levels, it becomes somewhat of a mixed bag. There were only about a few levels I did not enjoy or just found practically confusing, but the worst of them all had to be the one in Salt Lake City, as it lacked proper playtesting. In summary, the player was supposed to speed off a cliff into an area where a switch is needed to be activated in order to progress. But due to what's likely a case of code flaw involving gravity, it made the level nearly impossible to complete without cheats. Thankfully, a video by Nametag showcases a non-consistent method of completing the level thanks to a viewer of the channel. It involves lobbing a bunch of guided rockets from above in hopes that one of them hit the switch. Lastly, the game does appear to be a bit crash prone. From experience, it locked up my old Pentium 2 machine and I ran into the game randomly crashing mid-game from time to time. Sadly, the flawed single-player experience and wasted potential really played a big role of its overlooked reception. But on a positive note, Necrodome's gameplay appears to translate much better in the multiplayer. The game's network play was made possible through direct play, under various protocols from a standard serial connection for modem play to IPX and TCP/IP. For a brief time period, it also shipped with support for the Total Entertainment Network, but based on research, it looks like it was likely removed in later versions during its active days. I assume it was either a case of nobody playing it, or some issues getting it to work properly, as I recall some people were saying that developing for direct play was difficult to work with. Then again, I might be wrong on that statement. But once you get it working, it really does make for a chaotic experience, especially with enemies enabled. You can have players choose the 4 available colors allowing team play, either through competitive or cooperative, with the latter being treated somewhat similar to that of One Flag CTF, where players race over one flag to see who reaches the exit first. It is worth mentioning that the multiplayer demonstrates a feature that was likely unheard of at the time. That would be the ability to have 2 players on the same vehicle, either controlling the vehicle or the turret. This was rather unique for its time, and it definitely predates popular franchises like Halo, where up to 3 players could use the Warthog either as a driver, a passenger, or a turret. I will say that if you're looking for hidden gem multiplayer games to try out with your friends, I highly recommend giving this a try. Although, do be warned about potential sync errors and crashes, because this is an old network game after all. The only downside I could give the multiplayer is the 4-player limit. I think it was a missed opportunity to bump it up to at least 8, because this would have allowed for 4-way team deathmatches. Alright, my thoughts. Well, I can understand why the game wasn't for everybody when it first came out. I believe had I played the game with the default controls, I believe I would have not been able to complete the game with a positive mindset. Before I thought about playing it through, I've saw bits and pieces of Let's Play videos courtesy of Nametag and GG Beyond, and boy did their moods get sour towards the end.
A level that doesn't work, and here's the end of the game. So is this game any good? Fuck no. For one thing, progression stopping bug. That should never have made it out. Some of these old forgotten games are old and forgotten for a reason. I don't think this one was ever considered very popular. I think most people don't even know it exists, which is evident by the fact, check the site for new information about Necrodome. Yeah, about that. Oh, my God. No, don't play this game. Don't look for this game. That's Necrodome. That's probably the only time you will ever see somebody beat it. And if you do see someone else playing them, let them know. No, just don't. Look, here's one that did it. There, done. You want to see how bad the game is? There's how bad the game is. But Necrodome, it's forgotten. Leave it that way. Yeah, and it just exited. It doesn't even go back to the menu. It just exits. Like, it knows. It knows that you never want to touch it again. And it's right. This game is done. Goodbye, Necrodome.
After all of that work, after tolerating your shitty controls, that's the ending. You know what? I'm glad I cheated, because it was so not worth earning it. Yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, I cheated. Fuck. You know what? Fuck this game. I'll cheat and end this because I don't like it. I mean, it's great at the beginning, like the whole novelty with driving around in a vehicle, exiting the vehicle, and stuff like that. Like, that sounds cool in theory. And it is. I shouldn't say theory. It is cool. Except This game sucks at it, alright? So, fuck it. Let this game be buried underneath the sands of time or some shit. I don't even know the saying. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I didn't script this. Thanks for listening to me torment myself into finishing this game. Enjoy these credits. I'm out of here. Fucking unbelievable.
I would say that despite the rushed out development and the flaws it got, I believe Necrodome in its current state shouldn't stay forgotten. As a matter of fact, it just needed some fixes and quality of life improvements. The fan-made patches by White Magic Raven helped make the game about 50% more enjoyable, but I do believe Necrodome is one of those games that really benefit a remaster from a company like Night Dive Studios, or at least a source code release. So the verdict would be, if you crave hidden gems and enjoy vehicular combat in a post-apocalyptic setting, then I'd say this game might be for you. As long as you keep these flaws in mind when getting into this game, and make sure you use the fan-made patch, you will thank me later. Anyway, that will be it for this video. What are your thoughts on Necrodome? Do you believe it needed more time in the oven? And do you have any memories of this game? Please leave a comment in the description down below. I would like to give thanks to my tiny amount of Patreons with vocal shout out to Kuji. If you'd like to see this list grow and help support the channel, the link will be in the description down below. Thank you all for the support. However, if sending money to creators aren't really your thing, I also appreciate it if you join my House of Akage Discord community, as it could use some more activity. Anyways, thank you all for watching and peace out. See ya.